Dear colleagues, this research concerns one of the most in focus risk factors currently, that of biomechanical overload of the upper limbs. Currently, the most reported diseases as a result of exposure to occupational hazards are those affecting the musculoskeletal system. Among the possible causes that led to an increase in the probability of occurrence of these, there is exposure to the risk of biomechanical overload, especially in the upper limbs. The main ergonomic recommendations in these regards are provided by the technical standard ISO 11228, which, in its third part, deals with the handling of low loads at a high frequency. This standard also represents the main reference which offers the methodology for assessing occupational risk. The cultivation of palm fruit and stone fruit highlights work tasks such as pruning, thinning and harvesting, the performance of which exposes the operators to risk of musculoskeletal disorders. Our assessment was carried out during thinning operation in a peach orchard, adopting the methodology proposed by Daniela Colombini and Enrico Chipinti, known as Okra Mini Checklist. The orchard is structured with an espalier system on an area of about 25 hectares, and the operators who participated in the thinning operations were 12 units, all of them right-handed. A series of 3 videos from 3 different angles were recorded for each operator. The videos were then analyzed with the help of the Kinovia software. The task involves the use of both limbs in a non-symmetrical manner. For this reason, it was necessary to make separate assessment for each limb. The force and complementary factors multipliers do not contribute to the increase of the risk index. The factors that significantly contribute to the obtaining high scores are the presence of incongruous postures of hands and arms, of stereotypy, and of insufficient recovery time. Particular relevance is assumed by the frequency factor, especially for the right limb due to the high number of technical actions carried out in the unit of time. The values obtained are extremely influenced by the frequency of actions. Other factors that influence the results are linked to postures, the incongruous posture assumed in most of the analyzed cases, the arms placed at the height above the shoulder, however, occurs for a period less than a third of the time, and is due to a postural defect present in most of the operators who, although trained, have yielded to the unconscious automatism acquired with experience. Is a reduction in risk possible? The frequency factor can be reduced by acting on the work organization with interventions such as the rescheduling of breaks and shifts. Interventions to correct the postures that contribute to the increase of the risk index are possible by operating frequent education and training campaigns, also using other technologies and using technical aids such as lifting platforms for orchards for the removal of fluids that fall at the heights above the shoulders of workers. Thank you for your attention.
Good morning or good afternoon to all of you. This presentation, acting as a poster, is entitled Checking Calibration of Spraying Machinery in Lombardy, Results of More than 15 Years Activity by Domenico Pessina, Davide Facchinetti and Lavinia Laura Galli, belonging from the Department of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences of the University of Milan, Italy. Based initially on a voluntary basis, since 1999, the Lombardy region activated the service of periodical functional inspecting of the spraying machinery used for professional purposes. Thanks to the coming in force of the Italian Legislative Decree 150 of the 2012, in 2016 this action was managed as compulsory. The activity of more than 50 accredited centers led to the control of 13,000 tests of the spraying machinery, to be added to about 14,000 tests executed before the mandatory. Considering that the sprayers in Lombardy are estimated in 20–25,000 units, the action control of the fleet could be practically at present considered as being complete. Some of the performance and the use condition of the sprayers inspected are shown in the following. Some dedicated software programs, at present also available online for the accredited center, allowed the storing of the inspection and calibration data, so to create a specific database suitable to create statistics. About the sprayer age and comparing the aggregated data of the period of 2009 to 2015 with the most recent analysis, 2020, an increasing aging of the machine was recorded. So their efficiency, especially in the future, will be ascertained with even greater attention, considering that in this scenario they are fatally subject to a progressive decay of the performance. Among the three tanks normally fitted on spraying machinery, pre-mixing tank, machine wash tank and hand wash tank, the situation observed in particular in 2018 was rather critical for the pre-mixing and the machine wash tank, while the hand wash tank is well diffused also because its fitting is compulsory. In particular, in the spraying machinery working in winery and orchard, more than 60% of these units are missing for premixing and machine wash tanks. The nozzles, but also the manometer, are the machine components mostly subjected to wear. Their replacing is therefore very frequent, also to assure correct spraying condition in terms both of drop size and working pressure. With reference to 2019 test, from 40 to 60% of the inspected machines were subjected to the substitution of the nozzles or the manometer. These results confirm the importance of the periodic inspection of the sprayers in order to assure an efficient pesticide distribution, in particular to fix the problem of the drift that is important in the machinery used in winery and orchard. And thank you very much for your attention, for having listened to the presentation of the poster dealing with the paper entitled Checking Calibration of Spraying Machinery in Lombardy, Results of More than 15 Years Activity.
Hello everyone. I'm going to present the results of a first study on the application of a methodology applied in Italy for the work-related stress assessment. Studies carried out by NIOSH show that stress can have harmful effects on workers' health and safety. In order to comply with the obligation of risk assessment, in Italy the Permanent Consultative Commission published the indication for the assessment of work-related stress. INAIL, the National Institute for Insurance Against Accident at Work, developed a questionnaire which represents in Italy the reference tool used by employers for carrying out the assessment of work-related stress. The applicability of this methodology to all sectors, however, could make the risk incorrectly assessed, generating gaps which could have harmful effects on the health and safety of workers. Based on these considerations, a first study was carried out to assess the reliability of the application of the INAIL checklists on farms, in order to propose an adaptation of the same to the agricultural sector. 32 farms located in the Lazio region in central Italy were observed. The questionnaires proposed by the INAIL guidelines were administered in the aforementioned farms to employers and workers' representatives. Finally, data were processed in order to identify any critical issues. The study highlighted some critical issues in the risk assessment based on the INAIL checklists applied to the agricultural sector. The most significant attention area is that relating to the subgroup work environment and work equipment. Considering the entire sample of farms, the most important risk indicators are concentrated in the macro areas work content and work context. In particular, the sub-area work environment and equipment has a weight of almost 40% on the total value of the risk. The other influential sub-areas are organizational function and culture and career development, with nearly 20% each, while the workload work rate reaches 10%. Altogether, these four sub-areas contribute almost 19% in the determination of the risk value. These questions are considered by the interviews not congruent with the agricultural activity due to poor understanding of the question itself or due to the inapplicability of the parameter to the sector. The weight of the questions deemed not relevant to the total risk is about 27%. Among these, the questions with the greatest influence, more than 5%, on the final value of the risk are identification of a contact person for listening and managing cases of work discomfort, criteria for career advancement are defined, there are reward systems in relation to the correct management of personnel or to the achievement of safety objectives and competence. Following the results of the research, it is considered appropriate to review, at least in their formulation, some questions of the questionnaire to better adapt it to the agricultural sector. Thank you for your attention.
In this presentation titled, "The Contribution to Environmental Safety Through the Valorization of Kitchen Biowaste," we evaluate the possibility of disposing of food waste in a different way by obtaining energy. Solid waste management is considered one of the most immediate and serious environmental problems confronting municipal. Food waste causes 10% of greenhouse gases emissions. If food wastage were a country, it would be the third largest emitting country in the world, after China and USA. Currently, in Italy the production of waste per capita is around 500 kilograms inhabitant, of which about 40% is represented by the organic fraction of municipal solid waste, which in turn consists of about 68% food waste from kitchens and canteens. An example of a family reactor is represented by Home Biogas 2. In 2019, Home Biogas 2.0 equipment was placed at the Agricultural Institute of Marsala and using the biowaste from the canteen of this high school. From the 1st of November to the 15th of December 2019, a study was carried out to assess the production of biogas and digestate from biowaste constituted by the kitchen waste deriving from the school canteen. The result of the tests in the period the 1st of November to the 15th of December 2019, 45 days were on. Biowaste used kilogram 378, equivalent to 8.4 kilograms per day. The production of biogas total amount M322.05 equals 0.49 cubic meters day. In terms of energy production is 507.15 megajoules or 138.6 kilo. The production of digestate were 342 liters equal to 7.6 liters per day. The liquid digestate produced Table 3 was sterilized by a chlorine tablet, so that it was immediately used as a biofertilizer for the soilless cultivation. In conclusion, the Home Biogas 2.0 equipment is a smart choice for the environment and the economy and produces biogas, which is a clean renewable energy source. The results show that the tested plant, in 1 year, has the capacity to dispose of 2.5 tons of food waste, equal to the production of 2 families, and to supply approximately 150 cubic meters of methane and 2,200 surely small numbers, but as Mother Teresa said, we ourselves feel that what we are doing is just a drop in the ocean. But the ocean would be less because of that missing drop.
introduce you the research paper A Method to Ascertain the Lateral Stability of Wheeled and Narrow Track Tractors from Dr. Maurizio Cutini, Carlo Bisaglia, Domenico Pessina, Lavinia Galli, and Davide Facchinetti. In order to define a method for measuring the lateral stability of a narrow tractor, we follow the adaptation available standard, not only in agricultural field, but also for industrial and earth-moving machines. So the adopted methods were based on how many tires have to be lifted. So we have the one-wheel method, the two wheels, in which the two wheels on one side are lifted contemporary, and the four wheels method, in which the tractor is posed on a tilted platform. This is performed in two settings. The first, in which the longitudinal axis of the tractor is parallel to the rotating axis of the platform. And the second, that requires to take into account the pivoting axle. The distribution of the results of the test carried out on the 6 tractors, according to the method, is shown in the graph. As expected, it is possible to see that the method strongly affects the results. The results can be summarized as follows. The two methods have significantly different results. The 2- and 4-wheel method present two different rollovers. One at the moment when only one rear wheel starts to overturn, and the second when both wheels start to overturn. Instead, this case is not present in the one-wheel method. As expected, apart from the architecture of the tractor, in case of lateral overturning, the behavior of the narrow tractors could be affected by features as tire dimension, front-rear combinations, and inflation pressure. When using hoist, it may be difficult to define exactly the angle of stability. In case of one wheel and two wheels method, the angle is measured at the tractor axis. In 4 wheels method, at the platform. There is a correlation between the one wheel and the 4-wheel method. The standard deviation has been nearly of 0.1 degree in one-wheel test and 0.2 in 4-wheel test, confirming a good repeatability of the test. Thank you for your attention.
morning or good afternoon to all of you. This is a brief presentation as a poster of the arguments entitled ROPS Design Guidelines for the Effective Driver's Protection in Case of Tractor Overturning by Domenico Pessina, Davide Facchinetti and Lavinia Eleonora Galli, belonging from the Department of Agricultural and Environmental Science of the University of Milan. According to the main international standard, the most important requirements provided for a low-rover protected structure is the complete protection of a given volume, named depending on the standard clearance zone or deflecting limiting volume, etc., located at the driver place, provided that the driver, he or she, is properly fastened with a seat belt. So, to satisfy this requirement, the designer of the manufacturers are playing both on the strength of the ROPS and its overall dimension when possible, of course. In fact, the required energy of the test provided by the standards could be absorbed mostly in terms of strength of the ROPS or on the maximum deflection of the ROPS itself. So, to properly ascertain the effective protection of the driver in case of overturning, the results obtained from some tests of ROPS, caps in particular, carried out in the last 20 years activity of the Italy Milano SD testing station were investigated to examine the maximum elastic and plastic deflection value drawn from the load deflection curves obtained during the test, with the aim to fix the manufacturer trend when designing the ROPS. In particular, an elasticity, a so-called elasticity ratio, was calculated by comparing the plastic deflection in comparison, of course, with the elastic deflection. Moreover, once defined the clearance zone location, its effective protection was verified in terms of margin. It has the minimum distance of the ROP structural elements from the clearance zone contour. In general, the DE/DP elasticity ratio in the side loading showed a wide range of variation. More in detail, as is possible to see in the figure at the right side of the slides, for traditional, so open field tractors, this ratio varied from 0.42 to 1.08, with an average of 0.83, while for narrow tractor, Weiner and orchard tractor used in these conditions, the ratio varied from 0.5 to 1.6, with an average of 0.93. Some consideration: on the traditional tractor, the average of the elasticity ratio is lower than the narrow track category. In other words, in proportion, of course, the plastic, the so-called also permanent deflection, is higher than the elasticity, so the temporary deflection. This is made possible because the higher overall width of the traditional tractor and therefore of the driver place, so allowing a higher maximum deflection of the ROPS at the full load. Regarding the so-called margin, as expected, the values recorded, I remember in the side loading, for conventional tractor are remarkably higher than those of narrow track tractors, so confirming that the width available for the driver on the open field models is wider. Moreover, in some cases, the margin, you can see that the margin of some caps fitted on narrow track tractor is minimum till to few millimeters in the right part of the figure, so evidencing a non-optimal situation about the driver protection in case of serious overturning. In these critical cases, the stiffness of the ROPS has to be remarkably increased in order to assure an effective protection of the clearance zone and so of the driver. This led to a strong challenge for the ROPS designer that often have to take into account also the use of the high-strength steel quality. So, thank you very much for your attention.
Good morning to everyone. My name is Giulia Angeloni and I present the research comparison of cold brew and cold drip coffee extraction methods and stabilization technologies to extend its shelf life. In recent time, the consumption of cold coffee was increased. Several cold methods of extraction have been developed. We could discriminate all these methods into categories, cold brew and cold drip methods. This technique involves a long extraction time and the use of colder temperature. These beverages, respect to the traditional hot version, are lower in caffeine concentration and a bitter taste, and appear more sweetest. The first aim was to compare two techniques of extraction in order to evaluate the effect of the process and the temperature of extraction. The second aim was to evaluate the shelf life of this beverage, extending with different stabilization techniques. 5 stabilization techniques were chosen. The effects were investigated over 4 months, evaluating the caffeine and chlorogenic acid concentration, and carrying out an evaluation of selected volatile compounds and microbiological analysis. Temperature was found to increase the concentration of several compounds. Particularly, a higher temperature increased the concentration of caffeine and of some categories of chlorogenic acids, as shown in figure. For the second part of the study, after 4 months of storage, only the pasteurization and the HPP process registered microbiological values within the set limits of acceptability. The result of pasteurization and the HPP process were confirmed by the chemical analysis, which showed a stable content of caffeine and chlorogenic acids over time. After 120 days of storage, the pasteurized sample showed also an altered flavor profile. Blast chilled and UV irradiated sample showed microbiological contamination after 7 days. Thank you for the attention.
In the poster session, actually, let's say, probably what we can do is to raise the hand and make the question directly to the people that they make the poster you have been seeing, looking at, so that we can make a reply. So, any question? Gianpaolo, okay.
Could we start? Because the poster, I repeat, are already available on the website. We could see the poster very easily. We could download and we could study the posters, and we could answer. We could question some. I have some question, in particular for. I don't know if Anna Maria, are you here? Anna Maria Costa. Prof. Anna Maria Costa.
Yes.
Hello, I'm here.
Are you here?
Good evening. Good evening to everybody. I'm here.
Okay. I read the posters, and in particular, you present a poster about the effect of the lift crates on piglet survival rate during farrowing. I have a curiosity, which is why the sow lodged in the lift cages showed a higher stress level. Today we spoke about the level of people, but as concerned the stress level of the sows, according to obtained results of your research.
Okay, Professor Schillaci, many thanks for your question. And I'm happy to be the first to respond because I have overlapping and I have a round table at 6 on a project. So thank you. I'm happy for the question because this is an interesting study performed for 2 years in Verona in an experimental farm, a pig farm. So we decided to install lift crate that are so different from traditional crate. The farrowing crate is traditionally something that doesn't move. The lift crate has the opportunity to lift from the floor for 28 centimeters, with the aim not to crush piglet in the first 2-3 days of farrowing that are the most at risk for piglet. And so also we are interested in evaluating which is the level of welfare of the mother, because the mother is always took a part in this cycle, because the interest of the farm is to prevent crushing and so to improve the survival of piglets. So we decided to make some sample on hair of the sow, on the part of the dorsal lumbar zone of the neck, to have an idea of what is the chronic stress of this animal. So sampling at the beginning of the farrowing and at the end, the hair that was regrown in these 28 days. And we had this surprise, because we saw that piglets were less crushed in lift crates, and it was a significant result, but also that the mothers, not regarding the parity, so the ancienity of the mother, we saw that the level of stress was higher in these moving crates, probably because for the dynamics, first of all, and also because we noticed a particular thing. It was an experimental installation in Verona, when these lift crates are linked to sensors that are placed on the back of the sow. So when the sow rises, she touches with the back the sensor, and so it lifts up all the floor. And we saw that, for example, when all the animals were eating, there was an air compressor that lifts up all the crates. So not all the movements have the same length rising up. So we thought that this could be a disturbing effect of the lift crate, and also that we have to continue. We have an additional trial that we are making, stopping the lift crate, for example, at the third, after 3 days of farrowing, to see that if there is a positive effect on this chronic stress induced in the mother. I think that the producing farm factory of this crate will not be happy, but these are the results, so it is so. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna Maria.
It was only a small question, but the answer was very long, but very exhaustive. Thank you, Anna Maria. Thank you. Thank you. There is anyone that has the same problem, meeting in contemporaneously, simultaneously, or not? Simultaneous meeting?
Forse perhaps Francesco Tangorra. Francesco.
He's not here. He's not here. No, he left.
He left?
I'm quite sure. I mean,
I phone of Francesco Maria.
No, I'm here. Sorry.
You're here. Okay, iPhone. iPhone. Ciao, Francesco.
Sorry. I try to switch my camera. Okay. Good evening to everyone.
Do you have the same problem? You have
Yes,
another
yes,
meeting now?
Yes, now I have a meeting at the university, and so I have to leave the conference.
Okay. Is there anyone that has, among us, that has a question for Francesco? I have one question for you.
Yes.
But I wait for another people, another colleagues. Okay, could I start, Remigio, with the question?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Francesco, I read on your paper, your poster, and yes. I pointed my attention in that poster, lighting of milking parlors results from a field study.
Yes.
Okay. Because I remember when I managed in a research that was very interesting, I remember, inside milking parlor. And in some milking parlors, or the other was very shadowed by the big body of the cow, very shadowed. So I would like to ask you, in milking parlor, what should the lighting level be at milking stalls and near the udder to guarantee a right inspection of the teats and first milk streams?
Okay, thank you for the question, Gianpaolo. It's the lighting of milking parlors is a real problem because there is a poor lighting of the pit and the milking stalls, and there also the indication are not so clear. In general, it advised a values of 200 lux for milking pit, but this is not enough. It's not sufficient to have a good lighting of udder, because one of the main problem when we milk, is to during milking routine, is to make inspection of the milk streams and also of the udder, because it could be a problem with, for example, a mastitis or infection of the teeth. If there is no sufficient light in milking pit, the milker cannot make a good job. And so we suggest a higher level of luminance that could be 500 lux. But the problem is not only the luminance, there is also a problem of how to direct light towards the udder, because there is also the problem of blinding the milker with the lighting. So it's not a simple question to solve, because we need to have more light, but properly directed to the udder without blinding the milker. So there are some efforts provided by some manufacturers, but we are not close to the solution, the final solution. I think it's a field we need to investigate more.
Thank you, Francesco. Very interesting topic.
Thank you.
Other questions? Somebody else? Question could be also be made by, authors to other authors. We don't need to be the organizer to make the question.
Could I follow with a question for E.Koch? Could I?
Yes. Go ahead.
Dr. Koch is here. Thank you for your presence among us. And in my opinion, your poster presents many points of interest. And the title is Effects of Climate Change on Health of People Working in Agriculture and Forestry. A very dramatic topic. Okay, you brought about some factors that affect climate change. Also, you argued that the climate change could hinder the reduction of the pesticides. Very strong sentence. Could hinder the reduction of pesticides. And you argue also that in public opinion, farmers are partially responsible of the climatic change, and this could increase their stress level. And we heard the same expressions when Peter presented his speech. Okay, the stress because the public opinion charge on the shoulder of the agriculture a great responsibility of the climate change, or the part of the responsibility. Ora, could you hypothesize some solution able to allow the pesticide reduction and some ways to make the burden on farmers lighter? Two questions: pesticide reductions and the burden on farmers, make the burden of on farmers lighter.
Buonasera a tutti e tante grazie per le domande. So both are, of course, important and a little bit tricky questions to answer. Though the first I would like to indicate is that most data and most ideas you find in these poster presentations I took from my colleagues Alan Jones, Martina Jacob, and John McNamara, who all the three are also collaborating in Saccharina cost action. So all friends and colleagues from Claudio Colosio and Peter Lundquist, which we heard and saw also today. So they published a report, and this report you find also on the references, and it's called Impact of Climate Change on Occupational Safety and Health. It was published this year in June. And to come a little bit closer to your first question, now the very simple and I think convincing idea is that the climate change and heating will lead to a wider spread of pests among plants. So a lot of these pests need to grow and to spread higher temperatures, and so we will have more and more with the growing temperature these pests among plants, and how to fight them, how to reduce the number and the aggressivity of these plants. And the one answer could be to even spread more pesticides, and this is of course against the policy of the European Commission and of others. Everyone would like to have pesticides reduced, and but if the need to the spread of pests among plants, the need to use pesticides is growing, there's really a problem for farmers and of course also for public authorities. Not only in Germany, but in other European countries, and not only in Europe, worldwide, the second aspect you just mentioned, it's maybe even more important. We, to be honest, in Germany, we don't have exact data when it comes to depression and when it comes to stress. So stress is reported everywhere, and we have in the international, especially the German newspaper and agricultural journalists, we have each and every day more dramatic citations from farmers who seem to be at the end of their forces, who feel more than stressed, they feel depressed. And I today read an article, a presentation which the president of the French Mutualité Sociale Agricole, Pascal Cormery, who will take part on as a speaker on our ENAS conference end of this month, who wrote this, and he will be talking about something which may be at the end of stress and depression, meaning suicide among farmers. Especially in France, but also in other countries, there's a phenomenon, a very sad phenomenon, that means that the number of suicides has been growing during the last years, especially among farmers. So in France and in Switzerland and other countries where we do have these data, we notice that the suicide rate among farmers and special parts of the farming family is significantly higher than in the general population. So this may be, not in all cases, may be at the end of stress, too much stress, and depression. And this has to be, of course, examined even more. And back to your question, Gianpaolo, especially they in France, MSA in France, together with a lot of national actors, they have a very sophisticated program in development to strengthen farmers by really a lot of specific means and programs. So this would be, in a nutshell, a short answer to your question, and I'm sure it's not possible to give a sufficient, satisfying answer in some minutes. But what gives hope to me is that there are really good and convincing and promising approaches in several countries.
If I can contribute, I am in touch with the European Board of Veterinary Services for some other reason. They confirm that also in the last period, the suicide among veterinary people was higher than before. They have not an explanation for this, but it is what's happening, let's say. So it's a trend to be observed, let's say, and try to find the causes.
We see the phenomenon, we could see the phenomenon, but it's very difficult to ascertain the causes.
Yeah.
But it's dramatic. The change is dramatic. Increasing is dramatic for this kind of troubles. And in my opinion, also the matter that Eric show us concerning the pesticides, the use of the pesticide is a great problem in the next future, in our present, and also in the next future, unfortunately. But we have to afford. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. Mm-hmm. It's a challenge.
But just to add, Gianpaolo, there are also good examples of best practice in different countries, how to successfully reduce, on the one hand side, the use of pesticides, and on the other hand side, to protect people better and better, meaning those who are working on the fields, those who are using pesticides, but on the other hand, also those who are among the consumers or people living apart. So both should be protected better, and at the same time, of course, assuring good plant and viticulture and other plants production. So both should be in line as good as possible.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much. Remigio, could we follow with the question?
Yes, there are other, I don't see anybody raising a hand. And so it's a Massimo, okay.
Yes, Remigio. I have a question for Daniele Pochi, if he is present. Is Daniele here?
Maybe Daniele Pochi is still here, but
Cannot hear me.
let's keep
Yes, I'm here.
Are you
Okay,
here?
thanks.
Okay.
Yes. The poster is fisherman's exposure to the noise emitted by a prototype of an onboard rotating sorting machine for clams.
Yes.
I don't know how the machine is made, but if it were not already so, would it be possible to close the rotating drum inside the screen covered with the sound absorbing material? Reducing the problem of noise, of course.
So I don't. Can you repeat a little bit slower?
Se la macchina è dotata di uno schermo
Okay.
esterno, perché dalla foto, from the photograph, it seems it has not an external screen. So the noise at the ear of workers could be very, very high.
No, there is not any screen before the machine and the operator.
But
it was only a first prototype that probably should be upgraded from several points of view. I don't know what.
Okay, so it's a prototype, not a.
Yes. We only want to see if there was any difference with respect to the traditional vibrating machine that was based on oscillating system that was very noisy and generated very high levels of noise. In this case, we have some improvement in the conditions, but it could be improved, farther improved.
Perfect. Thank you, Daniele.
You're welcome.
Okay, so there are other now there is also a question from Marcello.
Yes, thank you, Remigio. I have a question for Domenico Pessina regarding the poster about checking calibration of sprayer machinery in Lombardy. Actually, are 2 or 3 little questions. First of all, how many authorized workshops are now operating in Lombardia? Are these workshops specialized in check calibration, or as it generally happen, they have check calibration as a part of their business? And then also just a clarification about the number of tests you mentioned, the test made. You mentioned a number of the total tests made from the beginning of activity in Lombardia, and just to say if this number is referred to the total test made or total sprayers checked, because sometimes this number are not properly presented for my opinion, because there are some sprayers that are tested many times during the years, for different reasons. So you have a generally higher number of tests made than the sprayers actually checked. For example, I've seen some data. This is among us, not public information. Anyway, I've seen some data of this kind from the Ministry of Agriculture.
Yes, thank you, Marcello, for the question. I hope you can understand my answer because my internet connection is not stable at the moment. Well, in Lombardy at present are working, are acting more or less 50 centers, and for the most of them, this is not the check and calibration of sprayers is not the main activity. Maybe this is the main activity for 2 or 3 of them. And of course, because for economic reason, it's not possible for the center to have the main satisfaction, financial satisfaction about these checks. The third question, the last question, is about the number of tests. Yes, you are right, Marcello. The number of tests shown in the poster is the total test, not the new test, because we know that the inspection of the sprayer is periodical. So the sprays have to be checked every, if I remember well, for different periods in years, depending on the use of the sprayers. So the number included in the poster is the total number. Of course, you know, the poster is showing a partial situation, not the total situation. In the final paper, there will be we will distinguish between the new test and the repeated test of other sprayers that have been checked, maybe, let me say, 4 or 5 years ago. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Pessina. Let's say it's a bit late. We are 10 minutes, behind the schedule. I will basically close the conference for today. We have a very nice presentation with some nice insight. So basically, I think we have a nice session, about 59 participants, 60 participants at the top, which is for an online event is quite a good number. And basically, I will recommend that the fact that check, the program for tomorrow, the Zoom link for tomorrow is different than this one. We have three parallel sessions, and the session will start at 2:30 instead of 3. So keep in mind this half an hour before to start. And so basically, with this remark, I will close the session. Unless Gianpaolo, you want to say something? I give the floor to Gianpaolo.
I take
Gianpaolo, you can close.
Okay. And I would like to remember that the posters are linked in the website, and they remain there. When you want, you could click and see the posters that are very, very interesting. All day are very interesting. And yes, I remember that tomorrow the timetable is another. It's different. We will start at 30 past 2:30. Not as today, 3 o'clock, but 2:30. This is very important. We have the link in the program. You could use the link in the program. The program is here in the chat, is in the website. And I exhort you, all of you, to open the video so we can shot a picture.
Everybody, we need to smile at the same time, okay? Otherwise, Okay, 3, 2, 1, smile.
Ciao a tutti.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Grazie.
Okay, bye.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Ciao. Bye.
To tomorrow. Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao. Thank you for your presence here today. Ciao.